Thank you. A little bit about Lacey Swope, the Channel 9 meteorologist, and how many of you have never seen her on Channel 9? Okay. We got a bunch of early risers then. Okay. Lacey is an Okie through and through. She grew up in the small town of Kiefer, Oklahoma. And if you don't know where that is, it's over there somewhere. Lacey attended the University of Oklahoma, where she earned her bachelor's degree in meteorology and minored in both broadcast journalism and mathematics. While attending OU, excuse me, that other place, she seized every opportunity she could to learn about weather. Her senior year, she interviewed at News 9. Lacey was on the President and Dean's Honor Roll and graduated with distinction and I think cum laude, right? Okay, Lacey's first job landed her in Sioux City, Iowa, where she became the weekday morning meteorologist on KMEG 14. While there, she forecasts for the tri-state area of South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. Lacey covered everything from blizzards to droughts to floods and tornadoes. After her time away, Lacey made it back to Oklahoma, joining the News 9 weather team in 2011. Now Lacey is the morning meteorologist Monday through Friday, anchoring the 5, 6, and 9 a.m. newscast. When she's not in the Bob Mills Weather Center, she is spending time with her husband, Tyler, her daughter, Brooklyn, and son, Troy. Lacey also enjoys anything outdoors, hunting, fishing, road trips, and, of course, storm chasing. You OSU people, put your hands together and welcome OU, Lacey Swope.
Thank you, guys. I'm so glad to be here. When Dave asked me to come speak, I was like, absolutely. And I get up to Stillwater quite a bit because coming and visiting Dave and seeing his family and his daughter and all of that. So I'm so glad to be here. Before I get started, though, how long do you want me to talk? Because I am a talker. Oh, okay. Okay, so, yes, I am from the teeny tiny town of Kiefer, Oklahoma. So I put it on a map in case you don't know where it is. The map is small, but it's south of Tulsa, Creek County. But I also grew up in Slick. How many people have heard of Slick, America? What? Okay, there, yes. And there's a whole lot of nothing there, but I grew up there with land out in the middle of nowhere. I was homeschooled up until high school. And so I spent a lot of time outdoors. I spent a lot of time with my older brother, my younger sister. And so family is everything to me and just Oklahoma in general. But I feel like in Oklahoma, everyone grows up, you learn your ABCs, and you learn tornado precautions. So weather is just in drill. Almost everyone in here is probably extremely weather savvy from just being in Oklahoma. You know terminology that people across the country would think you're crazy for. I was the same way and went to the University of Oklahoma. OSU does not have a weather program. So when I get the hate, get the weather program. And then we'll talk about it. But I went there. I absolutely loved it. I learned so much. I worked part-time, full-time, intern, took advantage of all the different programs. I was doing stuff with the National Science Foundation. I did not want to be on television. But I was minoring in broadcast because my dad was like, you should just do it. You never know. But I was like, that's for the mentality then was this is a big research school. It's very heavy focused in severe weather. And I wanted to do computer programming. I loved computer coding. I wanted to work somewhere doing something very in-depth with computer modeling and weather. And then I fell into an internship at News 9. My best friend was interning there, and he was going to be gone for the summer. And he said, you should just go up, maybe take over my internship. I think you would like it. You talk a lot. And I was like, well, we'll see. But, I mean, I'm talking country bumpkin, didn't own a dress, didn't put on makeup, like knew nothing. And TV just seemed so out there to me. But I walked in the studio, and Gary England was the chief at the time. And he was just amazing. And I just fell in love. And I was like, you get to talk about weather and no one tells you what to do. I mean, you're in charge of your own shift. You come in, you forecast, you put your graphics together, and you get to tell the story you want. Like, that's a dream. And to talk about weather, I mean, yes, I have to cram in a complete forecast in 4 minutes, but I can talk really fast. So I just learned to do it, and I loved it, and I was awful. I'm talking terrible. So I have my first tapes. They're beta tapes for those that know, and it's crazy. My voice would get super high. Gary actually paid for me to go have voice lessons. He's like, you got to bring that in. You got to figure that out. And I had people help me with, appearance, because that is part of it. And I was like, throw it at me. Whatever. I will just soak it up. I'm a sponge. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And I practice and practice and practice. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I just love it so much. And they let me do it. So Lola Hall was meteorologist in Oklahoma City at News 9 in 1956, a female. Does anyone recognize her? Remember Lola Hall? I got to interview her a couple years ago. She is a firecracker. I'll just put it that way. She is opinionated and she's spicy, and I love her. But it wasn't until 2011 that News 9 hired another female meteorologist to be on television full time, and that was me. So that was quite an honor. That's a long time, and I absolutely, absolutely love it. People say, was it weird? Was it crazy being the female? And it never was with the people I was around. I had a couple viewers who were just very upset, but it was very few and far between, and I virtually had no issues. So I ran into a problem one time in a job interview where a chief that was going to hire me before I came to News 9 had basically said that if I don't get a whole bunch of seals and a whole bunch of extra letters behind my name, people in Oklahoma won't take me seriously, because the females just really struggle with credibility, and it's going to be hard to break that barrier. But he's no longer a chief, and he's no longer doing his thing, so whatever. Anyway, things I absolutely love is just talking weather. I love talking to kids because they get so fired up and they're so passionate, but I love talking about weather to anyone that'll listen. I mean, most of the time at the dinner table, I'm banned from talking about weather, and my husband just like, stop. So any avenue I get, I'm like, sign me up. Let's talk about it. Because I live it all the time. And you have to with weather, because it's constantly changing. We have all these measurements that are taking place in computer modeling, and you constantly have to be in the know. I don't know what people did before cell phones, but that's all I spend my time doing. Next model run, what's it showing, what's actually happening, which model's doing better. And you just have to stay up to date to have a good idea, especially the hours that I come into work, because I work a morning show. So I go on air at 5 a.m., which means I get up at 2:30 in the morning. This morning I did the 4 a.m., which is rare, which means I got up at 1:30. This makeup has been on my face since 2 o'clock this morning, and it feels disgusting. Normally I am napping right now. So how do I make this work with the family is I go home, take a nap right after work. Hopefully my kids will sleep, and I go to bed at about 7:30. So my phone goes on Do Not Disturb. I pretend the world is not happening after 7:30. So, did I pass my family? Did I skip that? It's an important part. Hold on. I did. Okay, so that's my husband. Right now, my husband is an engineer, OU grad. He's a mechanical engineer, structural engineer. Wait, not both. He's not both. Hold on. It's gonna come. He's gonna hate me. He's gonna see this stream. Can we cut the stream? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's with buildings. What is it called? Is it structural? That doesn't sound right in my head. I've been up since 1:30. Okay, well, he's very important, okay? But we did have a saying at OU, because our programs were so similar and we had to have all the same math and physics and chemistry and all of that we always joked that the people who couldn't hang in meteorology went to engineering. So, yeah. But no, he's great. But my point is, whenever I got pregnant with our daughter, who is 4, he decided to be a stay-at-home dad to just kind of get through the first early years, because my schedule is so rigorous and I have to dedicate so much time. I could not do what I do and what I love with the hours that I work. Severe weather dominates my life, and it doesn't care what the schedule is or whose birthday it is or what holiday it is or who's sick. And so he currently takes care of our babies while I'm at work, and could not be more grateful. I also have a son. He is 16 months and just got his first haircut today. So it's a big day, but we just love to travel. We love to get outdoors. We love to take them with us on whatever trip we're doing, and figuring out how to juggle all of that is something new to us, but we're making it work, and it's been phenomenal because we do get everything in Oklahoma, and this is one of my favorite maps. This is from a year in March, just to tell you what's on the screen. That in the magenta in northwestern Oklahoma is a blizzard warning. The purple is an ice storm warning. The red is a winter storm warning. The orange is a travel advisory. The green is a tornado watch, and the red is a tornado warning. And that was happening at the same time. And it was the best day of my life. So no one died. There were no fatalities. But I mean, to have trackers in blowing snow and then a tornado, like, Where else can you do that? And so growing up in Oklahoma and seeing these things happen and being able to work at a place where we can show the resources and have the trackers and the helicopters, which people think that's just crazy when you travel elsewhere. And our station has 2 of them combined with our sister station in Tulsa. And sometimes I just sit there and look around and I'm like, this is just amazing. It's just amazing. So here's video really quick, just in case you wanted to see some tornado video, because I stare at this all day long. So here it is. That's more, by the way, in 2013. The beginning of the Moore tornado. Look at the double helix. Oh my gosh, it's like DNA.
It hit something.
That's the pig farm day back in like 2008 in Lacey, Tennessee, Oklahoma.
North of that path of May 3rd, 1999 here as it tracks
That was
to the
sickening day.
northeast.
Horrendous
But
day.
just a massive tornado here.
I guarantee that's an F3. At least an
That's in
F3 right there,
Kansas,
David.
but man,
Absolutely.
that is Kearney. More.
Let me get around this thing. It's really turning into a stovepipe. This one drop out right now. Go down the ground. Go down the ground. Okay, we got one on the ground, David.
And you got to look real hard sometimes to see the swirl, but it's there.
There it is.
And then sometimes it's obvious. You don't need to zoom in from a mile away.
Very, very violent. Oh my goodness.
So that was Kearney. But we have a big team, and it's just crazy. It's crazy to look at these pictures to me and to see that that's how many people we have as far as meteorologists go, because you just don't see that anywhere else. You don't get that anywhere else. And to have the team to where we can work, honestly, our schedules are short compared to what most meteorologists work because we have so many people. Just so extremely blessed. Everyone on the team gets along so stinking well, and we just know what each other's thinking. So on a severe weather day, we have what we call our battle stations. We're not in the military, but it works. These are all different little weather pods, and we have a new studio in downtown Oklahoma City, and we all have our job. So my job standing in that particular weather pod next to Cassie Hyder, I'm running radar while David Payne is on the wall during severe weather, and I'm usually running about 3 or 4 computers at the same time. So you get to where you can move mice with both hands and constantly looking at the different storms. We get so many supercells. Sometimes we'll have 6 to 8 supercells all producing tornadoes or about to or just did. So tornado warnings at the same time. And it just requires so many sets of eyes to know what's going on and where. The struggle is always, what do you talk about? Who do you focus on? You try to hit everybody. You cannot be talking about everything at the same time. So we're trying to have multiple people, everybody looking at radar, while someone else in the back that you're seeing there is Justin Rudisell. He's running the storm trackers. His job, full-time job, is to focus on the storm trackers and talk to them, get them into position. Hey, that storm just turned right. Keeping them safe, letting them know what the storm is doing. A lot of times their GPS and internet stuff's not working, especially whenever you start getting into some of the really rural areas. Talking to the helicopter pilot. Cassie's usually drawing storm tracks. We have another pod that you can't see, so this is a different angle. Back to the left of me, and that is where social media happens. So that's a huge part that did not used to be, but over the last several years, we have a social media meteorologist. So his job is to just blast out everything that's happening, because so many people are on their phones. They're not watching the live stream, but we want them to be able to get especially life-saving information when a tornado is on the ground and get it like they're watching. So he posts that, but he's also gathering information. It's so important for us to get that confirmation. You know, we have so many storm trackers, but sometimes it's not enough to be on every single storm. So getting confirmation that, hey, that thing does have a wall cloud with it, or hey, this thing is about to produce a tornado. He's looking at all of that live. And you talk about chaos in that pod. It's kind of crazy to watch how he does it. I should point out, that's the green screen. So that's where we stand. We have monitors on the side, basically from the floor all the way to the top. There's 5 monitors on each side. So we can see our storm trackers, the different radars. What's not on air is what David is looking at, or the meteorologist on the wall is looking at constantly. So even though I may be talking about this, he sees that I'm over there pointing like, you got to go down here, or whatever it is. We have a whiteboard that we'll write on, so if there's something we can't say over air, but it's vital that everyone knows. Yes, that's why we're not live streaming in the studio. Things happen. So speaking of News 9 being a family-owned company, in case you don't know, the difference is TV stations, they're typically owned by corporate somewhere else in the country, basically. And it's very rare. It's very few and far between now to have locally owned TV stations. I've worked at a couple of non-locally owned, corporate-owned stations, and it's crazy. Just a really quick story. Okay, I got time. Really quick story. When I was at my first station, I had, I've always been a hunter. I just grew up hunting, which is another reason why I love weather. When you're hunting or you're fishing, the second the sun comes up, the temperature actually drops. The morning low is usually right at sunrise, and it was like, why does that happen? Why does frost all of a sudden get thicker right as the sun comes up? And different questions that you have, the way that the wind affects animal patterns and so many different things really got me interested in weather. So that was another big driver for me. But at my first TV station in Iowa, like the deer mecca of the world, Oklahoma weather, Iowa deer, South Dakota deer. So just being a big deer hunter, I was like, man, they have tower property. The TV has to have a tower somewhere that sends a signal up, and they had tower property. And I was like, does anyone hunt that? And they're like, that's a really strange question. We have no idea. And I said, who do I talk to about potentially getting permission to deer hunt on the tower property? So I send the email, and it's funny because you see it getting forwarded to multiple people. Like, we just got this girl who just asked, like, and so do you know? And anyway, I ended up going out to California where the owners were, and they did. They gave me permission, which I never dreamed would happen, but we got permission to deer hunt there. Whereas now I could just walk straight upstairs to David Griffin, or when he comes in the morning and stops by to say hello, I could say, hey. He'd probably think I was crazy too, but I would probably get permission. And it's awesome to have them right there because they live Oklahoma weather too. They get under the same tornado warnings. They understand why it's important to have our trackers and to have the resources that we have. And so if we're like, hey, we really need this, or this new technology just came out, we don't have to write a proposal and send it out to someone who has no idea what it's like to be in a tornado or why that's important. So one of the things we have is dual pole radar, so I won't bore you, but my love for computer coding went into my love for radar and analyzing radar, and the way radar works is just fascinating. So when dual pole radar came out, essentially radar sends out a signal and then it listens for it because it hits something and bounces back. Whatever that wavelength looks like based on the change it made when it hit something, it measures that and gives us a reading in dBz. Okay, well, what's the frequency of that essentially? And it would do it in one direction, which was great, and it's still great. But now with dual pole, we not only get a horizontal, but a vertical signal that we're sending out, which gives us a much more in-depth look at what that storm is actually doing, what the hail's doing. Is it hail? Are we seeing debris instead of hail, which before you couldn't tell the difference? And now we can tell the size of a water droplet. Is it smashed? Is it a perfect circle? You know, there's so many different things that it tells us, which lets us know what a storm is doing. How many people have radar on their phone? Yeah, several different versions of radar on your phone. Well, in case you don't know, and most probably do, it's so important to have radar, but you have to have multiple. So we have our own live radar, which sends a signal out, but you have to use multiple different radars because the Earth is curved. So this picture just shows that really quickly. If you are over here at BMX and you're sending the signal out, you're actually hitting the top of the storm because of the curvature of the Earth. It's going to send a signal straight. It will never be bent. And so if you're closer to the storm, like MXX, you're hitting the lower level of the storm. And for a tornado, we care about the low level. The spin's going to be happening at the top. I need to know what it's doing in the very lowest level. So you need to be close to a storm. And for people that have never seen a map like this, these are the radars across the country, with the exception of stations' live radars. And you will notice there are a whole bunch of holes. Where you see blue, there is virtually no radar whatsoever. And there's a big blue spot in southeast Oklahoma. So people in Durant have got together, and they have actually put in their own radar on a water tower. Still, the data's not great, and they're still working to get it figured out. But because they virtually have no warning. And you will see tornado warnings drop on any storm that goes in that area because virtually you don't know what it's doing. So it's better to just warn it, which is just crazy when you think about Oklahoma. There's also a place in Ellis County, northwest Oklahoma, and also northern Roger Mills. We call it a radar hell. It's what it is. And without a storm tracker there, the tornadoes move through there constantly. It's a very big radar magnet, or a tornado magnet. And there's so many times that without a storm tracker there, I mean, we're constantly having to tell the weather service, hey, Val has a tornado. People need to know this is happening because they cannot see it. So trackers are crucial, and we need more radars. So if it comes to voting for that, if you know how to do that, we should propose that. Get that going. Okay, so we get all kinds of stuff in Oklahoma. We get it all. Bitter cold, of course. We all remember a couple years ago in February, the absolute nightmare of the pipes freezing up and busted and just horrendous conditions. We're still paying for it and will until our grandkids or grandparents. Triple-digit heat, flooding rains, wildfires, dust storms, severe weather, of course, which is just my passion. So why does all of this happen? I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of weather and the science behind it. Most probably know, but 100% weather is important. And so people will ask the question, okay, we've got all this severe weather. People die. Why don't you we have bombs. We've got things we can do. Why don't you put a bomb in a storm, kill the storm? This hurricane's coming. It's a buzzsaw. It's got, 200 mile per hour winds. It's going to decimate the coast. Why don't you just put a bomb in it and change it? You might be able to change it. A bomb in a hurricane, it may make a blip, but the amount of energy that storm has, you're probably not going to change too much. But when you start doing that and you want to change weather, it's such a big global engine, and it's important because what the atmosphere wants to do is it wants to be in equilibrium. It just wants to be equal all the time. So thunderstorms are ways to release energy. And because our Earth is tilted, if it were straight, like in this map, all would be well. We would be in equilibrium. Well, someone decided we should tilt it on an axis, and that just threw everything out of whack. So it gives me a job, though. Since it's tilted and the equator heats up more than the poles, and different times of year, different parts of the Earth are tilted away or towards Earth, if we're talking winter, summer, the seasons, the equator has so much built up energy that it wants to release. That's a hurricane. It's vital. No one knows what would happen if we didn't have hurricanes. Where does all that energy go? It is so much heat from the sun heating up the equator, and it releases that by moving away from the equator. That's why the hurricanes move up to the north, or in the southern hemisphere, they move to the south, is they're releasing that energy. And severe weather, thunderstorms, supercells, they do the same thing. We heat up differently because of the terrain, because of the Rocky Mountains, and we want to have equilibrium. It's all connected, big flow. So why is Oklahoma this mecca that it is? It's all about geography and topography of the Rocky Mountains. So we have the cool air and the jet stream coming from the west to the east. We've got, it comes in over the warm, humid air from the Gulf of Mexico. We're so close to the Gulf of Mexico, and things go bananas. So here's a map just to show you why Oklahoma is a mecca. These maps are fascinating to me. These are severe thunderstorm watches. And you can see the higher, the brighter the color, the yellow there, we get a lot of them. We get a lot of severe weather. This map is from up to 2011. I need a new one. It's very old. But you will just see that we get tornadoes in all 50 states. We've had tornadoes in Hawaii. But, of course, it's much more prevalent in the deep south where the Gulf moisture is richer and the tornado season shifts. So a little bit about what we've seen so far. We've had, how many, 70? 70 tornadoes this year. Payne County. Everyone in here is probably happy. But no tornadoes in Payne County. It's been South Metro. I mean, we had areas that were hit twice. So it was absolutely wild for the South Metro. And the New Western Oklahoma, so it's just kind of been one of those years. It's sporadic. I get asked at most of my talks, so this was going to be a question. I'll answer it now. The craziest thing I've ever covered, it would definitely be early in my career, but in 2013, the Moore tornado. And just because of where it hit, obviously, the people that it hit, the time of day that it hit, the fact that it hit when kids were at school, was just, I could talk for years about what I saw, what I witnessed, what I wish I hadn't seen, and the impact that it had. But it just made me realize, having done all the computer work and you're just so far into it on a screen, and then to see it actually happen, the worst of the worst Mother Nature can throw at us, the absolute worst that there is, happen, not only in Oklahoma, but right there. I mean, right there close to home. And so I think it's, as awful as it was, I'm grateful that it was early in my career because it changed my thought process so much as the way I present weather. I want people to listen to me, take me seriously, but you've got to find a way to keep their attention. Otherwise, everyone's sleeping and it's boring. And it's very important that people pay attention when the weather's quiet. That way, when the weather's busy, they're going to want that information, and they're going to turn for that information because they trust you. So that's my goal. Quick snippet there. That's just a picture from that night. We asked at the station, we just said, hey, if anyone wants to make donations, we don't know what to do. The severe weather was over, so the weather team was like, what can we do to help? We just said, hey, if anyone wants to come to the station and drop off donations. We were there till the wee hours of the morning. People were lined up for miles around the station in vehicles from all over the state, some from out of state, just handing us cash, piggy banks. And this was the water. People said they hit up every Walmart, Ace Hardware, Sam's. In the metro, no one had water because it was in our parking lot to go to Moore. Is that not incredible? I mean, it was incredible to see. So just to see human nature, 11 days later, the El Reno tornado touchdown. So Oklahoma's home to the widest tornado on the surface of the earth at 2.6 miles wide. Also the fastest wind speed, 318 miles per hour. So again, that's why weather in Oklahoma is the Mecca. We learned so many things about people in cars, because that's what cars look like in a bad tornado. People can survive in a safe room. You can. People do it all the time. They can also survive in a bathroom, in a closet, depending on the strength of a tornado. But homes were wiped off their foundations, and people lived. Talking to kids, you find ways to make them pay attention, but people die in weather. It is very serious. Severe weather, flooding. This happens all the time. Back roads all the time, and people will just drive through what looks like lakes, and then they don't know this is what's happened. So we see it all the time. Does anyone remember the 2007 tropical storm that hit Oklahoma? Because we have had a tropical storm. It was Aaron, and unfortunately did dump a lot of water. So we're heading into winter, and this is going to be the big thing we'll be talking about. No one likes to drive on that. Hoping and praying for no ice storms. And then as far as how we forecast, there's so much weather data. As I mentioned, I just spend my life all the time looking at data, seeing what the latest model is showing. We talk about the HRRR all the time and the latest high res, and there's new computer modeling coming out. But we always have to look at the broad view, and then we have to know what's going on the big scale and bring it all the way down to the local. And then you have the person that says, I have a birthday party at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Will it rain? And you got to get that specific. So we look at weather models. If you've never taken a look, I could show you all kinds of examples. But that's kind of my life in a nutshell and why I do what I do. And I would just love questions, because I think I left, just a little bit of time here for questions about any of it. Oklahoma weather, let's talk. Oh my gosh, don't tell him. That was his voice on the video. Listen. Val is amazing. Val Castor, one of our storm trackers, along with Amy. They live here in Stillwater, and they're absolutely amazing. Val, I'm telling you, it really is crazy, because David Payne, the chief, also a big-time storm chase for forever still. And so it's like they can sniff out. Like we have 3 supercells. We do not know which one's going to produce a tornado. We know where the conditions are favorable, and Val will say, listen, I'm telling you, David, I need to go to that one. And David's like, I'm telling you, this is looking a little better. And he's like, I'm telling you, I got to do it. I got to go north. And he will, and then he gets on the tornado. It's crazy how it happens, but that guy can look at a storm, and it's like he's got his finger on the pulse of it. It's wild. And I'm sorry I didn't show him.
Okay, question over here.
Oh, hi.
First, I'm impressed. You got 40 minutes of subject in and 25 minutes of talking. That's
I'm sorry.
Incredible.
I know.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible.
I know.
All right, so in Stillwater, there's storms that come from Mulhall.
Yeah.
And they end up looking like they're coming to Stillwater, and then they go up towards Perry.
Yeah.
And they go down towards Cushing. Why is that? What is that in our area that causes that
I
to
truly
happen
do
so
not
much?
know. I truly do not know, but I will tell you. I mean, you can see that. You can see that, and then goes through Cushing and Oilton, and then they get the 100-mile-an-hour winds, but it was going to the northeast. When supercells, I will tell you, because it happens in multiple places, but most storms are riding the jet stream, which is coming from the southwest to the northeast, and so they're dipping into that. When the low-level rotation becomes stronger, storms will turn what we call right. So they start to move more easterly, and a lot of times storms are strengthening as they're coming into central Oklahoma. As that's happening, they're starting to turn more right, and sometimes they will go south of Stillwater, but they go south of a lot of areas because that, and north, yes. And if they weaken, they get even more caught up in the jet stream and will go north. But as far as like they need to put a windmill there or something, yeah, I don't know. It'd be nice. Steer that thing right over Stillwater. Yeah. Yeah.
I was listening to a talk some years ago by Kelvin Drogemeyer.
Oh my gosh, my professor at OU, amazing.
And he was talking about complacency among the general public, that they don't pay the attention to the weather forecasters as they should when a tornado warning is given. And he was suggesting that it might be because we give tornado warnings over a certain area. But even if a tornado or tornadoes hit in that area, they are, of course, localized.
Very, yeah.
So that most of the area never sees the tornado.
Sure.
So that most of the population in that area never gets
It's a false
tornado.
warning. Yeah.
So it's false warning. And so they become complacent when they see a tornado warning. Do you have any comments on
I
that
think
view?
that's 100% factual. I think that does happen, and I think that's also a reason why people say the television trend is changing. How long will TV meteorologists be around? That sort of thing. That's why I think in places where tornadoes and big tornadoes happen, it is so important, because we have found through research, and this has been a lot of study done also, is that people will only act when they see the tornado. So if we can show them that tornado 2 towns away, instead of them looking out their front door and seeing it and say, this thing is coming, here's the damage it's doing, they will act. And so, sure, you have people maybe on the northern side of the county, and we can say, hey, you know what, Stillwater, this is going to go south of you. You're fine in Stillwater. But I think it's so important to show them what's going on, which is the sole purpose for storm trackers, the radar, and the helicopter that we have. It's to be able to show them so they will know this is happening, this is where it is, and we've got to act. At least that's what we hope. If there's something newer that comes along, I am all for it.
We've got one question on this side of the room. If we can grab it real quick. I was wondering, is the tornado alley, is it moving east? Are there more tornadoes going east now than in the past?
You will see talks of that. There's been a lot of research on that, and there's been a lot of counter research on that. I wish I had a slide, because I've got it. I could show you, but the stats are saying no. I mean, they're not. We still have just as many. We still have bigger ones. There is a tornado season for sure in the South, in the Deep South, through Alabama, through Mississippi, through Tennessee, Kentucky, and they get bad things. They really do. But as far as it shifting, meaning that it's not as bad here now, that is not the case. Looking at statistics, I can send you the slide, because that's a great question, and it does seem that way sometimes.
Over here. Real quick, the station being where it is, so many tornadoes have hit there. Have you ever been in a severe weather situation at the station where another person might have to seek shelter?
Yeah. Yes, and that's my mom's fear. Yes.
Yeah. What have you had to do?
Yes. So actually, a couple of different instances at our old station when we weren't downtown. We had an actual tornado shelter that was outside, that was above ground, that the entire station could fit in. And we also, now that we're downtown, our basement is completely below ground, and that would be the thing. It's set up. There's working on it at the new station. It's not quite that way yet. But at the old station, in our shelter, they had a camera and a mic set up, and we literally had protocol of saying, okay, production will go first. The general station will go. What would typically happen if it was a big day, Griffin would let everybody leave if it was going to be, during work hours or whatever. And then just critical on-air people that had to put us on the air would stay. And then we had like a kind of a pecking order of, okay, this person would go, then this person would go. David would be the very last person to go, and then he would run in. We'd grab his mic, and we had ways to keep him on air. We never had to do that, but I will say during the El Reno tornado back in 2013, the one that was coming out near the Radio Road, came up to I-40, and then lifted just as it was crossing I-40 coming right towards the station. After more, people were... they had just lost their minds, and rightfully so, after seeing that happen. And here comes another one 11 days later coming towards the metro. So we didn't know this, but the whole station had evacuated other than just us during the warning for that. Yeah, but we did not. And truthfully, we were looking at it, but not once was I saying this is heading. I wasn't even thinking that, And it lifted.
There we got one more.
Okay.
Back 30 years ago, when the mesonet was really coming on strong, we haven't heard nearly as much about it recently. So my question is two parts. A, how much do you rely on the mesonet system in Oklahoma, number one? And number two, how does what we have in Oklahoma compare with, in terms of density of measurements, with other states across the U.S.?
For a long time, Oklahoma led. It was like, this is the coolest grid for Oklahoma instrumentation for weather, for anywhere. There are other states now that actually have their own local sensors like that. Multiple states, Kansas, Colorado, I think Nebraska, Texas does. It's becoming much more popular. It is what I rely on. That is what I check, because the only way to know if a model is right and initializing correctly, which means its output at the end and the forecast is correct, is to know what the current conditions actually are and how it's handling that. So, that's all I look at. That's all our graphics are populated on TV with mesonet data. And so it's everything. And that data does go into modeling. The thing is, we got a couple sensors per county now, or maybe 3 sensors per county. We would have to cover every square millimeter of the earth at every level of the atmosphere to have a good handle, and we're a long way from that, and that's why forecasting is at the level it's at.
Have you been out with a storm tracker before, and if so, how scary
Oh, yes. I mean, I storm chase myself, but yes, I have. You have to trust the person who's driving. The scariest part is the person who's driving. I mean, you have that because honestly, because people drive like idiots, and people come from all over the country. They sell tours, so you're worried about the other storm trackers that aren't as experienced in driving in those conditions and hydroplaning. So that's scary. The weather part's never scary. It's the people around you running stop signs and blasting through, red lights that are scary.
Mr. Jones, that'll be a fine. You didn't have a mic.
Am I good?
Hang on just a second. Kevin, could you please come up? We have one more little special presentation to do. And Lacey, on behalf of the Rotary Club, We Believe in Education, will be donating a book to the public library in your name.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you.
And then
that's amazing.
Kevin has something for you.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so Rotary International has a foundation. Mm-hmm. We were founded by a gentleman called Paul Harris. And as we give to the foundation, we accumulate points that we can then use to give to anybody on the planet and make them a Paul Harris Fellow. Well, a couple of our members banded together.
Oh, my gosh.
And you are going to be a Paul Harris Fellow. You are a Paul Harris.
Oh, my gosh.
You've actually been a Paul Harris Fellow for months.
I didn't know that.
Because we've had this in place for a while. So there's a certificate and there's a pin that go with it. Now, when you join that Rotary Club in Oklahoma City one of these days, you already have a Rotarian number.
Okay.
So you need to get a hold of us and get the numbers so that they can make sure they get credit for being a Paul Harris Fellow already, because that will follow with that number.
Okay, great.
So congratulations
and
thank
you.
you.
Much. I really thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Lacey. That was great. All right. Next week, Ruth Cavins is going to be here with the United Way, going to give an update on Payne County community status. And let's get out of here, Sergeant of Arms.